old school, new school listening motherfuckers. It's that time of the week again. It's another episode of Old School, New School Comedy Podcast. And I am your trashy, shit talking host, Christy Miller. And with me in the studio this week is a really good friend of mine. Oh, and we're also recording here at the comic strip in New York City every week. And in the studio with me this week is a really funny dude. He's only about 4 or so years in, but he's got it. Like, this kid has got it. And I love watching him grow, and I love watching him blossom. You may have seen him if you've been in New York City, or he may have run you over in his wheelchair because you ain't shit. I just want to introduce you, Mike Favor, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
So, tell me, when did you start comedy? Like, what made you want to be a comic?
I actually signed up to do my first comedy show 2 days before my birthday in 2019. And then I did my first open mic in April of 2019. So 4 years, about 4.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. What made you want to do comedy?
It was always something I wanted to try, but it was one of those things like I just didn't know like how to get into it, who to talk to get into it. But then, I just I looked at this website called Bad Slava, and they had like open mics around. Matter of fact, what happened was Broadway Comedy Club, they have the industry room, and I kept seeing an ad for the industry room on Facebook.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, maybe that's the way I can get into comedy. So I signed up to do that, and then I just did open mics for like the next 3 months before the show.
Wow, good job.
So it was cool.
Nice. So, getting to be a comic, it's like, to me, it's in your blood.
Right.
For me, it was like I've wanted to do it since I was like 7 years old.
Yeah.
But I thought that never happens to people like me.
Right.
And like I was never like, oh, that would never happen to me. Those are the cool kids. And then all of a sudden I'm doing it.
You know what it is about comedy when you're not a stand-up comic? It's like people that don't do it, they only get to see the finished,
yes,
like the finished product.
Yep.
So I only knew stand-up from like people's specials.
Right.
And it was like, I thought that's how comedy worked. And then I had friends that would go to open mics. And they're like, oh, no, they got open mics over here. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should do. And then you get that fear of, like, what if nobody responds to my jokes? Or what if people boo me? So it was always that thing. I was always in my head about it. And then I gave it a shot. And I got laughs at my first open mic. And I was like, all right. And then once I got laughs at my first open mic, and like the first time I heard a laugh, I was like, oh, this is what comedians are always talking about. When they talk about that feeling when you get a laugh, I was like, oh, yeah, this is it.
That's a high you cannot replicate. When you make a whole room of people laugh,
like
it's a high.
I think once you get that first laugh, you get that, you get that, like, this is it type of thing.
Yep.
Like, so once I felt that, I was like, I'm stuck now.
You're hooked.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like a drug dealer. Hey, come on to this open mic. Yeah, it's free. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, 10 months later, you're sucking dick for a 5-minute spot in a bringer show. You're like, man, you got that mic stand.
Right. Because it was like I wanted to be everywhere in the beginning and do everything.
Right.
I'm still like that now, but when that first year or so, you're like, I just want to be everywhere.
Yeah, it's like you can't fight it, and it's like it's in your blood, like it's a part of you, and you can't describe it, you can't create it or manifest. It just happens. It's like you just want to be on stage, and I always find like as the years go by, it's like if I don't get on stage for a few days, I'm really fucked up.
Yeah, I'm always like that. Like, I'll sit home for a few days, and I'm like, all right, I got to do something. I can't do this. And people who don't do it, like, they don't really understand that feeling of, like, when you haven't done it because they look at it like, what do you mean? Like, you got a show next week? Like, next week is, like,
that's like
far.
That's like years away.
Right.
It's like it's so insane. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta wait 3 days to get on stage.
Right.
Fuck my life.
And I talked to one of my older sisters about it, like just stand up in general, and she was like, you were always naturally funny. So
Mhm.
this is why you took to it, because this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Like everything else you did in life, that's not what you were supposed to be doing.
No, but it led you to this.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
had to
yeah.
go through all that stuff just to be
Right.
in this position to be able to do this.
Right,
Now,
right.
tell us more about who Mike Favor is. Like, tell us about you.
Well, I'm a kid that was born in the Bronx, raised in Queens. I got like 9 siblings.
Wow.
Me and my older biological sister, we both have cerebral palsy,
Oh, wow.
and we were adopted.
I didn't even notice. He's in a wheelchair, people. Come on. Nothing? Is this thing on?
But we yeah, me and my older biological sister, we were both adopted together. So we grew up in Queens, and then we found our biological family when I was 23,
And how old are you now?
39.
Wow.
So we found my biological family 16 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And
How was that?
it was surreal. Like it almost seemed like it wasn't happening when it was happening. The unfortunate thing was my biological mom had passed away 5 years before we came along.
No.
But I met like my other 7 siblings. So that was cool. And I met like a bunch of aunts and uncles and my grandmother.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, so it was cool. Like that was
Beautiful shit doesn't happen like that in stand up. What are you doing? You're going to ruin it.
but it was cool going from, because I grew up in a house like with my biological sister, my 2 adopted sisters, my mother, and at times my nieces.
Oh.
So it was just me and like a house full of women. And
Damn.
and foster kids, because my mom
Right.
was like a foster parent, so she had foster kids, and I hated it. Like even though like I was adopted myself, like when the other foster kids were, I'm like, yeah, you need to
You need to get
Yeah.
to stepping.
like, yo, you're taking up my spot.
You're like, yo, this is temporary, bitch.
Yeah, like,
I'm a permanent fixture in
like,
this
I
motherfucker.
live here. There's paperwork. You gotta go.
Yeah, I live here. You just visiting, bitch.
Yeah. But yeah, meeting my biological family, it kind of led to everything else, because it kind of freed me up,
Right.
because I spent the first 20, maybe 19, 20 years of my life, like, shit. I spent like the first,
Here, why don't you? The mic's falling over. Why don't you just hold it?
so I spent
That's
like
better.
the first like 19, 20 years of my life, like basically trying to figure out who my mother was and
Mm-hmm.
where I came from and stuff like that. And once all of that kind of came about, it kind of freed me up to be the person I wanted to be, I
It
guess.
filled in the blanks.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
totally put in the filled in all the blanks of what all the missing pieces.
Right.
But then again, as a kid, you could just make shit up.
Yeah, I used to. So I'm gonna tell you a story. Like,
Okay.
so I didn't find out I was adopted until I was 7.
Oh shit.
Right. And the way I found out was we were watching a show about adoption on HBO. so me just being like a goofy 7-year-old, I asked my mom, was I adopted? And she goes, yeah. And just left it like that.
Damn.
And I was like, oh.
No context.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. So then she's like, oh, yeah, you know, your mom, she had some issues, and like she put you guys up for adoption and all that kind of stuff. Because I knew I had like cousins that were adopted.
Right.
Because that was like my family's thing, was like they adopted kids.
Right.
So I knew I had cousins that were adopted. So I just thought I'd ask. And when she said yeah, it was just kind of like, oh, well, shit.
You're like, I'm growing up in a rescue, not,
Yeah,
not
like,
a house.
So then the next day she comes to me and she goes, and you also have a brother. She was like, you also have a brother, an older brother. His name is Kenny. And she gave me a picture of him and me from when we were like babies.
Oh my god.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then I just kept the picture of him. And I would make up lies about like my brother living with us and all this stuff. Because it was like, I don't know, like you're 7. So you just
Yeah.
like, you're trying to figure stuff out. And I was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, my brother, like, he doesn't live with me at all. I don't know where he's
We
at.
had his ass deported. We
Yeah, so it was weird when I finally met him because I had to tell him, like, when I was a kid, like, I used to make up stories about you. And, like, now you're, like, in my face.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's all keep talking shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, stuff like that when I was 7, I found out. And then it was just, I don't know, I went through different phases of, like, at first I didn't care. And then you get to a point where you're growing up and you're like a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, oh, fuck this and fuck everything and fuck everybody.
Yeah. It happened.
Then in my 20s, like my early 20s, it was, I found them and it was cool. And, it hasn't always been easy because we came back into the family and they accepted us fairly easily. It wasn't like a big thing. It was just like, yeah, you're part of the family now.
You're like, oh, you found your way back.
Yeah. And so then, you have your usual sibling things, especially when there's so many siblings.
Right.
You have your sibling things, but we get along for the most part. But
that's fantastic.
A lot of personalities in one.
Yeah. A lot of shit talking.
Yeah.
A lot of trash talking.
Right.
A lot of like fights, pitting everybody against each other.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's typical sibling rivalry.
Yeah. So it's been some of that, but for the most part, everybody we're cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now, cut to you're doing stand-up comedy. How do they feel about it?
My family, my adopted mom, my mom, like she when I told her about it, she was like, "Well, it's about time." Like, I don't know what took you so long, but I'm glad you figured it out. My sisters and my brothers, they're cool. Like they've come to shows, they're supportive. Aww. And they're happy I'm doing it. I think for everybody, it wasn't so much of a thing of like, why are you doing this? Like, what took you so long?
Yeah. Because you're probably making everybody laugh all the time. Yeah. Like, you need to be on stage.
Yeah, because I would like sit and just crack jokes on everybody for like maybe like an hour. They'd be like, you should be. I remember like I have this friend named Jen, and she's mixed. Like she's white and Hispanic. And I brought up one day in front of our friends, like, like you say nigga a lot and you're white. And then I just went into this whole thing about her being white and saying nigga.
Hilarious.
And how everybody's let her get away with it for so long. And then I think that was the moment in my brain where I was like, I really probably could do like stand up. But what's weird? It almost feels kind of insulting, like as when you're not a stand-up, to think that you could do stand-up. Like when people tell me now, and they're just like, "I think I could go do." I'm like, "No,
bitch,
couldn't.
you can't." No.
Yeah, like
see, there's people that it's in you.
Right.
You never go. I think I'm gonna do stand-up and just do it. That doesn't work that way. It's almost like it's this hidden like addiction that we have. Like we start to we start seeking it out. Like we're doing something naughty behind everybody's back. Like we're secretly writing jokes and secretly fantasizing, and then we go to open mics and we don't tell anybody right away.
It's funny you say that because I got a friend and he always brings up the fact that when I first started doing comedy, he didn't even know because I was going to open mics. And I wasn't telling people I was going to open
because
mics.
You're actually a comic.
Yeah.
Real comics, we just do it. We don't have time for the bullshit.
Right, and then one day I was like, "Hey, I got a show in June." He was like, "When did you start doing comedy?" I'm like, "I've been." He's like, "I didn't even know." I'm like, "Yeah, I just really didn't want anybody coming to the open mics."
Yeah, it's like when you start out doing stand up, it's like when you're fucking an ugly person and you don't want your friends to know because they're gonna clown you. Yeah, and it's like, "Oh, I've been fucking this bitch for a long time."
Because when you first start, you're horrible.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're not, like when you look back at it, you're horrible.
Yeah, but it's like, but that's where you are. And I always try to tell New Jacks when I, because I'm 27 and a half years in.
Right.
So when I see New Jacks, they're like, "Oh, I need to," I'm like, "No, you're right where you're supposed to be."
Right.
So don't rush it because you'll never, if you rush it, you're never going to hit it. You're going to be too ahead of yourself and not hit it.
I'll say this is like a younger comic. Like, I know the reason why a lot of comics are like that now because of social media.
Yeah.
Like social media, watching everybody else's career. That's the thing I think about social media is different from other time periods in
Yeah.
comedy.
Especially
Like,
my time period.
yeah, like
In the 90s, we didn't have social media,
Yeah.
so I wasn't worried about what the next guy was doing.
Right.
All we focused on was writing jokes and getting better, because that's how you got booked. It wasn't off of followers, because if you had followers, you were like a cult leader. You
Right.
know, like it was creepy. You had an entourage. Only MC Hammer had an entourage back then.
Right.
You know, we didn't. If you had traveled people deep, you're like, creepy.
Yeah.
You know, but now it's like watching everybody post their best, post
Yeah.
their coolest, and everybody thinks everybody's bigger than what they really
Or
are.
post that they have this going on and that going on, and then you,
They ain't shit.
even though you've been in it like 2 years, you're like, why didn't I get that? And you're
Yep.
like, why? And then I started thinking, why the fuck would I get that in like 2 years? It's like,
Yeah,
this
right?
person's been doing comedy for like 15 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I just started 2 years ago, and I think I should be where this person's at.
Well, I always think that too, being at 27 years in, I see these new kids getting all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm sucking the wrong dick. This is some bullshit. I am too old for this social media game. I don't know how to get followers. I can't even spell algorithm, let alone figure out what it is. It's like the G spot. I can't find it. Good night.
And me, like, I post stuff on social media, but I don't really care about social media.
Right.
So I just do everything like the old school way of like, oh, there's this spot here. Let me go over here. I'm gonna be over here.
Because
go
I
over
always
here.
find too that people that are so into their social media, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right,
You know,
right.
that's a gift. That's a 24-hour job is social media. I
Right.
don't have that kind of time because I'm writing and creating. And I always find that, to me, I could be wrong, but this is just my opinion. Everybody's going to hate me for this. Real comics don't give a fuck about social media.
Right.
They are on that stage, they're on that grind, and they're writing and they're grinding it out hard. They're not.
Yeah.
They don't have time to like, oh, I'm gonna be doing this bringer show. I'm at this spot, bitch. No one cares about the coffee shop. Nobody cares. Sit the fuck down.
Like, I'll post stuff just out of respect of like I may know the producer, and it's like I'm gonna show them respect by just posting like, yo, look, I'll be over here. If you want to come. If you don't, I really don't give a shit.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, whatever.
I don't either, and it's like I'll post it just to, because some people always ask me, when are you going up again? I want to pop in.
Right.
So I just post if and this like the shows that don't really mean much, or just like work, because a lot of it for me is like working out. I gotta go work on material, so
Right,
you don't
right.
need to come to that. But like the other shows, I'll post it just to help. Like, hey, I'm gonna be here this weekend
Yeah.
at Joe Blow's show,
Because
and
not for nothing, like those shows at some point, like especially for somebody like you who's been in it for 27 years, like shows sometimes, smaller shows become like your open mics.
yeah, they are.
Yeah, so
they're
it's like-
all my open mics. Like
Right.
that's my workout. Like it's like for me, I always think of them, and I don't think of them as an open mic. I think of it as I'm going to the gym.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm a gym rat, so I'm going to the gym. I'm working out.
Right.
So when I hit the A rooms or go on the road or I'm headlining somewhere,
Right.
that's where I showcase all the work I've done. It's like
Right,
going to the
yeah,
gym,
yeah, yeah.
lifting. You do like a 12-week program. At the 12th week, you're on that platform, deadlifting, squatting, and benching. They don't see all the work you've done in the gym
Yeah.
before that. So that's how I think of it.
So for me, like I'll see some shows and I'm like, oh, this show don't really mean much. So let me try out some new stuff, or
yeah.
just work on what I've been working on, see how it lands, and if it lands well over here, when the big show comes, I'll
Yep.
do it over there.
Yep.
Cause some jokes I do, it won't work, and I'll just like, yeah, let me not. And some jokes is like you try it, and you're like, all right, it didn't work this time, but it has potential. And some jokes is like that joke is absolute trash.
Yeah. But I also give jokes 3 strikes.
Yeah.
And I do it 3 times.
And if it doesn't
And
work,
if it's 2 out of 3 gets a laugh, I'll keep it and work on it.
right, yeah.
But if it's 1 out of 3, I'll put it aside and think about it for later.
right,
And if it doesn't get a laugh all 3 times, I know it's garbage.
right, yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
like a couple weeks ago, I was with Teddy Smith, who's my
Yeah.
best friend, and he was doing a show at a spot in New Jersey. So I went with him, and he goes, "Just come and meet the guy. Get spots out there. He pays." I'm like, "All right, cool." It's Jersey City. It's literally, I live in Midtown, so
Yeah,
it takes
yeah.
me 20 minutes to get there.
Right
It's
there,
faster to get to Jersey City than Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So it's like, what am I thinking? I might as well get on the PATH train and go.
Right.
So I go, and then one of the comics didn't, but the guy saw me at the Gay and Sober event I headlined for Gay Pride weekend. And he goes, I was going to say hi, but I didn't have time. And I was running around. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. And,
Yeah.
and he goes, oh, one of the comics isn't showing up. Would you want to go up for 8 minutes? And I said, sure, I'll go up. And Teddy's like, what do you want to work on? And I said, it's 8 minutes. It's not enough time for me to work on anything because my bits are long.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
how I am. I always tell people I need like a 2 to 3 minute light
Right,
so I can
yeah.
land the plane. So I went up and I just ranted. I just went off the cuff. I did no material for 8 minutes and I murdered it. And then
Right.
then the guy's like, he gave me 4 spots the next morning. But it's like, but
Yeah.
I've been doing it a long time, so I'm at that stage where I can go up with no
Yeah,
material and just rip
like, yeah.
and just go off the cuff on ideas. So, but it's, it's different, generation. So like as you get better, because I know you're gonna be something in this industry,
Thank you.
and I don't say that to anybody, and you probably know me by now
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
hate
yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
I fucking think everybody's a piece of shit until
Right,
proven
yeah.
different. But when I first saw you, I was like that time when we did Alex Starr's show at Dangerfields years ago.
Yeah.
When you just started, I'm like, this kid's got something.
Thank
I go,
you.
he has it. Like you have just a natural, even your storytelling, you had me dying laughing last week. So for the kids out at home that are listening to this show, tell me, I have this thing with Mike Favor that I want to follow him around with a camera crew and create like a pseudo reality show about him and his girlfriend because
Yeah.
they are hilarious. So, tell us about your girlfriend and
Lauren, she also has cerebral palsy.
do you guys ever play bumper cars?
Nah,
Damn.
we never played bumper car. But that's like she's really helped me believe in, like, if you have the right person with
Yep.
you,
Yep, you can do
everything
anything.
kind of falls into place.
Mhm.
Because I've been with her for a little while now, and
Mm-hmm.
it seems like ever since we've been together, everything is just going how I
Mhm.
want it to go.
Yep,
And it's because I have a person at home who
supports you.
supports me, and she's never like looked at me negatively when things don't go my way, and when I'm getting pissed about things that are happening in comedy.
Yep,
She's like, well, that's how it goes. Like, you can't, like,
she's right. You just
dwell
gotta
on it.
brush it off.
yeah.
Tomorrow's a new day.
And I'm just up there like, I want to fucking quit. Fuck this shit. And she's like, what? Like, you're one of the best. Like, comedians. Like, you gotta relax yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
You're 4 years in. Relax.
yeah, like
And-
something else will come along.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'll get upset, like, if I don't have shows for, like, a week.
Mhm.
And she's like, your comedy career is not over. Like, just
Yeah, she's
relax.
right. She's
Pull
right.
yourself back. Like,
Yeah. If you're a real comic, you want to quit every day.
Yeah.
Every day, I'm like, I quit.
Yeah, like,
And they're like, no, you're not.
because the business side of it is
It's
so
brutal.
shitty.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, and you're just like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Like, but then you love it so much. So then the next opportunity that comes along, you could say, like, on Tuesday morning, I fucking hate this shit. I'm ready to quit. And then Tuesday night, somebody be like, I got this spot. I'm there. Don't even worry about it. I'll be there. I'll be there tonight. And this morning, I just said I wanted to quit.
Mm-hmm.
So, she's real supportive. She's funny herself.
She is funny. I think she's hilarious.
She is. And it's like unassuming
Mm-hmm.
hilarious because she just says things off the cuff and she's like, what? Like, where did that come from? But yeah, she's real supportive. If she could, she would come to every show.
No, she's awesome. I think
Yeah.
she's adorable. And I think
She
you
is.
guys are really good together.
I love her to death.
I
She's
want
the
you to
best.
tell the story that I love about the Accessoride. Just tell me that story that you told me last week when we were in Bayside together.
Oh, how she lost.
Yeah, so tell the story. Tell the story.
So we had this. She had this ride service called Medi, and she lost it because she was drinking and made like rides for everybody for the Medi. It was like 6 different rides, and then they wrote her a letter like, yo, as soon as she made the last ride, they must have typed up this letter like, yo, you're out of here, we're done, you can't use it, you can only use the regular Accessoride. So now I gotta use the train to go everywhere. And then we had that show last week in Bayside,
Right.
and Bayside is like the end of the fucking world.
Yep.
Shout out to Stephen Pantelides though, but
That kid is a hustler.
yeah, but Bayside is fucking horrible because you got to take the Long Island Railroad
Mm-hmm.
to get to Bayside, which is still in New York City.
Yeah.
So it was just like it took forever. But I love Steven, but Bayside fucking sucks.
Yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
Get
like
something down the street.
Yeah, but yeah.
So when you went to Calmetti, what happened?
So the week before this show, I had a ride. I thought I had a ride to go to Bayside for that show.
Right.
So we went and typed in the address on Medi, and it was just like, you were no longer a customer. And I was like, I had to hit up and I didn't charge my wheelchair up or anything.
Oh
so
my god!
I had to hit up Steve and like, yo, it's not gonna happen. Like, it's not happening. And then they called her like a few days ago and was like, yeah, you made a bunch of rides on June 29th. And none of it made sense, so we just canceled the service. And I was like, yo, I knew it. I fucking knew that day was the day that did us in. But yeah, so now I'm back to taking the train everywhere.
Damn.
Yeah, it's cool. It sucks sometimes, but it's cool. It sucks because like the MTA trip planner thing always gives like the wrong like stuff.
Yeah.
Or it gives you like up, so an elevator could break while you're in the train and you don't know it until you get off.
Until you get off the train.
And then you like go to the elevator and it's like, oh, now I gotta take another fucking train
to another elevator.
Yeah,
oh my god.
So it has its moments where it's annoying, but I gotta do what I gotta do.
No, you're doing it. You're doing it. And I want to know, so I know you've been showcasing a lot lately and you've been getting yourself out there. How's that been going?
It's fun. Like I did we're at the comic strip and I did an audition here on Tuesday.
How'd it go?
It went all right. It wasn't like my greatest set ever, but
sure.
It wasn't. I had to follow Adam Sandler. That was the one. That was fucking nuts. Like that.
That'll put hair on your chest. You gotta follow the big guys. That's how you get stronger.
Yeah, but it's funny because I wrote about it on Facebook and people took it as if I was saying I was nervous about following Adam Sandler. And I wasn't saying it like that. I was just saying like I can't fucking believe on the night of my audition
you're gonna get blown out by Adam Sandler.
Like Adam Sandler. It was funny because I came in and they were like checking me in, like, you know, this is the time you got, this is this, that. And I heard somebody say, "Hi, Adam," behind me. But I'm not thinking of Adam Sandler.
Right,
I'm
of
thinking
course.
It's just some regular fucking comedian named Adam. So I didn't even turn around or anything. I come in the showroom and they're like, oh, you know, we got this next comedian. But before that, we got Adam Sandler. And if there's a video out there anywhere of it, you could audibly hear me say, "Get the fuck out of here." So I'm like, yeah, I'm following Adam Sandler. Like, that's incredible that I got. And the set was cool. It was a cool set. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't my greatest set ever. I didn't change the world with it, but it was, I know I did better than everybody else who auditioned that night.
Of course.
But it was like, you know, I followed Adam Sandler and it's like, and I said it when I got on stage. I was like, imagine being the guy that has to follow Adam Sandler. It's like you're gonna go home to all your friends and be like, there was Adam Sandler, and then for some reason, some nigga in the wheelchair was there. I don't know, like, what that was about.
That was his shtick to follow Adam Sandler. You should have went up and said, you know, I was walking, but I saw I had to follow Adam Sandler.
I was like, I gotta do something.
Up.
Yeah, like
I gotta do something shticky.
So it was like Adam Sandler and Tony Rock were there that night. And I know I did good because Tony Rock like looked at me after my set and was just like gave me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, that's cool. Like I know I did a good. Like if nothing else comes of this night, Tony Rock gave me a thumbs up.
And if not, you should have just ran them motherfuckers over outside.
Yeah. But to have an audition show with Adam Sandler on it is like. That's something like I would probably talk about for the rest of my life. That like when I had an audition at the comic strip.
That's really funny.
Yeah, like he just so happened to be there that night. And the fact that I heard his name
And you said, "Get the fuck out of here!"
Yeah, like I was
Fuck
like,
all
you gotta be fucking like Adam said, and then I wrote it, and everybody's in the comments like, "Oh, don't worry, you got this." I'm like, I didn't say I was nervous. I just
Yeah,
said,
motherfuck.
yeah,
They're
like,
distracted now because of Adam Sandler.
yeah,
Because it disorients the audience because they're like, "Ah, it's Adam Sandler." Ah.
yeah, and then
And
it's
then,
like,
then some crippled motherfucker in a wheelchair
like,
talking smack.
we
Motherfucker.
got this regular dude who's never been in a movie following like the guy you grew up watching on TV.
Yep.
So it
That's
was
how it
cool
happens.
though. Yeah, it was a cool.
But it's a good experience for young comics to do
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because you
yeah.
really it shows you your grit. Because I
Yeah.
remember when I was starting out, and I just got at that point I was just made a paid regular at the Comedy Store in Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles, so it's a continuous show every 15 minutes from
Right.
8 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
So the headliner would go on at 10, and they usually had a 30-minute spot, not a 15, but they would blow the light because they were assholes.
Right.
And they knew everybody was there to see them. So it was either Carlos Mencia, Joe Rogan, Dom Irrera, Dice, Eddie Griffin.
Yeah.
The list of the 90s big guys back then.
I watched
And-
the Comedy Store documentary, and they talked about like how Eddie Griffin and Dice, like they would all go on for like hours. And hours.
When Eddie would walk in, we would all just go, "Good night," and we just leave because we knew his stupid ass wasn't getting off stage for nothing.
So I know this is your show, obviously, and you're the interviewer. But could I ask you, like,
Of course.
what was that like for you to get past at the Comedy Store? Because that's one of those clubs where it's like everybody knows the Comedy Store.
Yeah, it
So-
was. I grew up there. I cut my teeth there. So, being passed by Mitzi Shore and how much she loved me back then
right.
was like, holy shit! It's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
godmother
yeah.
of comedy, and she loves me. Like
Right.
she gave me everything. And then as she got sicker and sicker, she got detached and more detached. And then that guy, scumbag Tommy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
came in and took it over and just kind of pushed us old heads out and decided he was going to be. It was very. Tommy's relationship with Mitzi was very much like Norman Bates and Psycho. Like he would literally put her wig on and sit in her chair and do show. And he even started talking like her. Like it was creepy. I'm like, don't take a shower
Yeah.
in this fucking place because he's gonna
Yeah.
stab you.
See, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm like low key obsessed with like the Comedy Store.
Sure.
Like, that's like my dream destination.
My name's on the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the spot. Like I'll feel like I made it somewhere when I can get booked at the Comedy Store, because I've watched the documentary, I listened to the podcast, so
Yep.
I know like the whole history.
Mm-hmm.
It's like even like somewhere like the comic strip. Like I know like the whole history,
history of this
comic-
place,
Yeah,
yep.
like so just for me to get an audition here, it was like, man, like this is where like Eddie Murphy started,
Mhm.
Adam Sandler, Chris Rock. Like I saw the 3-hour video of Dave Chappelle here back in like 2009.
Right.
So it's like when you come to places like this, the comic strip, the Sellers,
Yep.
like if
They're
you're a real
historic.
comic,
Yeah, it's historic.
and it's not not to shit on younger comics, but I think a lot
Oh
of
shit on him.
I think a lot of younger comics don't know their history.
I was just having this conversation about how these new jacks don't know their comedy history, and it's
Yeah.
like, then why are you a comic?
Right.
If you don't know your history and you weren't raised on it, or at least were like into it, how do you
Yeah.
even know how to do stand up? Like, why are you even doing it? And that's why I think a lot of them are going to fall off the wayside.
But that's the thing, a lot of them don't know how to do stand up.
yeah.
And it's like I learned quickly, like going into comedy is like it's kind of like the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have these comedians that come from these small towns, and they may be funny from where they're at,
Yep.
and then you get here
Into the
to
big
New
leagues.
York, yeah,
Yep.
and then you realize, oh, everybody's kind of funny in their own way
Mm-hmm.
here, and then you realize, or you don't realize, that you're not as funny as you were in fucking Iowa somewhere.
Yeah. And bumfuck Michigan or
Yeah.
something. Like, okay, go
Yeah.
home.
So then that's what happens with a lot of these comedians. They have a false sense of like how funny they really are.
Yeah, they have no self-awareness
Yeah.
of how they are on stage. And if you look at a lot of the comedy now, it's all mediocre.
Yeah.
Like when I did that room out in Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, is this crowd stiff?
Right.
Or are these comics that bad?
Right.
And when I went up, but the first words out of my mouth, I ripped the room open, and then I just, murdered him the whole time. And then the guy after me couldn't follow me,
Yeah.
and it was just mediocre. And then the room just dropped again.
Right,
And it
right,
was
right.
like, you guys need to learn, because like I was saying earlier, like with the Eddie Griffins, the Dom Irairas, the Dices, the Carlos Mencias, the Joe Rogans, and they were on at 10. I always asked Mitzi, give me the death spot.
Right,
I
yeah.
want the death spot after them when I was a young comic,
Yeah.
because I wanted to get stronger. So all it did was make me stronger and be able to command a room after they've just been, ass raped for an hour and 15 minutes, and then
Yeah.
and I would just jump on that wave and surf it in. But a lot of comics can't handle that.
Cause even like when I was early on into it, you were one of those people that I knew. I was like, you're like big time.
Aw.
Like, so I was like, if she thinks I'm good, then I'm okay. Like
Yeah.
you, Dave Lester,
Oh, he's great.
and a few other people like that are older comics. I don't want to say old, but like the OGs.
Yeah,
you
we're
know
the
what I mean?
OGs. Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Whenever I say old comic or new
Yeah, yeah,
young
yeah.
comic, I don't mean age. I mean comedy age. Yeah.
So it's like when I see you guys, that's when I get excited because I'll see like you guys. I'm on a show with you guys, and I'm
Aw.
like, oh yeah, I get to perform with this person. And then like to have like I saw Dave, I think a few days ago, and he was telling me he was like, I'm a big fan of your work, and
Aw.
so when I hear you guys say like, oh, you're because it means something to me when like comics who are like in my range of years, like when they say I'm funny, that's cool. But like when the OG said, it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing something right.
Yeah,
like
because
when
we're
you guys-
noticing. Because
yeah,
it's a thing, especially like an OG thing. Like there's a different grind than the new kids have because they have social media.
right.
They everything they put on social media, little clips and this, all this bullshit. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have an act.
Right.
Like, who are you? If there was a sitcom about you, who are you? What is
Right,
your
yeah.
sitcom about? And they're like, I would just bitch about things. That's not who you are.
Yeah, like-
that's
and
just a thing that you do to annoy people.
Right.
Like, who are you? Like
Yeah.
earlier when I was asking, like, who is Mike Favor? Where does he come from? Now I have his sitcom in my head
Yeah.
from the description.
Yeah, and I base a lot of my comedy around those stories of like, cause I had like my childhood wasn't normal.
No.
So especially just based off the fact that I had a sibling that had the same disability that I have. So you can imagine what it was like for like me as a kid to have a sibling that has the same thing, and we went through all these things together, and we were like 2 years apart.
Wow.
But everybody swore we were twins.
Wow.
And it's like, no, like she's older, but because we were both disabled and we look alike,
Right.
people were like, oh no, you guys gotta be twins. And then we just went through like this bullshit of like summer camps and programs for people that it's funny because like when I was growing up, even if you just had a physical disability, you were put in situations with people.
You were
that-
put in situations with people with like mental learning
Yeah.
disabilities, and it's like you're not dumb, you're just fucked up.
Right, and I'm sitting there as a kid, like, why am I here with these people?
Yeah.
And but it was like they didn't distinguish any of it.
No,
back
because they put everybody in a special, like a
Right,
learning
yeah.
disability or special ed.
then.
you know,
And
and-
honestly, like it wasn't till I got older and I realized because my mom, who adopted us, she's like 41 years older than me.
Wow.
So it was like I realize now as an adult how much work that had to be for her to deal with not one but,
But two.
kids that had cerebral palsy. And I'm used to, like now I kind of like that's why she was acting like that because that probably was a lot of fucking. And I wasn't any help because I was like an asshole.
You were just a kid.
Yeah.
You were just being what kids do.
Yeah, and I was always like a funny person. Like
Right.
as a little kid, I would go into the doctor's office and like sit on the doctor's table and just have them laughing. And she would be like, "You can't go in there cracking jokes," and they would be like, "He's fine, it's fine. Like
Yeah.
don't worry about it." So yeah, like I realize now, like yeah, my mom. That's probably why she was like so angry all the time, because she had to deal with me.
Yep.
And she had to deal with my sister.
It wasn't our disability she was pissed at. It was my attitude.
Because I was the type of kid it was weird. Like I didn't like to get in trouble outside of my house because I thought that like in my head I was like, well, if I get in trouble in school, they could lie and tell her whatever they want,
Yep.
and it'll make it worse for me. So I did all my shit in the house. It's like you can see when
Exactly
I'm fucking up.
what I'm doing.
Yeah, like I'm fucking up right now, right here.
Just this much.
Yeah, like, but outside I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But when I get here, like, this is where I'm gonna fuck
This
up.
is where I'm gonna let it all out.
Yeah, but I went to summer camps and I would fuck up a lot because they weren't in the city. So
No.
like I knew like she wasn't gonna come and like beat my ass
Yep.
all the way in New Jersey, and they would call him and be like, "Oh, he's doing this and this." He's like, "Yeah, that's why I sent him to you."
Yeah. You
like-
deal with him.
Yeah, like so he doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I'm taking a break. That
You're-
motherfucker wears me out.
Cause she'd be like, cause he's like fucking nuts, and but yeah, now I think all the bad stuff I did as a kid is paying off.
Yeah. It's all paying off on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
All that shit. That was all training ground. So on that note, I always ask comics this question because everybody has one or 100 bits. Is there a comic that has written a joke that you heard that you went, motherfuck, that is so funny and brilliant. I wish I had written that.
I had 3.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
So the first one is Patrice O'Neal.
Oh, anything Patrice said is just fucking fire.
When he did the joke, he opened up his special, the Elephant in the Room special, talking about the value of white women and like how much a white woman is worth if she goes missing. And he goes into this whole thing and he proves his point because he goes, there was a girl named Natalie Holloway that got murdered back in the day, and then the guy that killed her went off and killed somebody
The Brazilian
else.
girl.
Yeah, and so he was like, yo, what's that white girl's name that we're missing?
Natalie Holloway.
Yeah,
What's the
everybody
Brazilian girl? Exactly.
Yeah, and when I saw that, I was like, that is fucking G. And he goes into the whole thing. So the second one is the 12-minute bit from Norm Macdonald.
Oh,
So he goes into this whole thing about he watches the news. It takes so many twists and turns. Like
right.
it starts out with him talking about he watches the news. Then he goes into like this woman named, I forgot her name that he said, but the woman goes missing, and he goes into the whole thing about how gradually they start telling you about the woman, and they have her friends on and all this stuff. And like, so you're just thinking like, where's this going?
Right.
And then he goes into this whole bit about how he would have killed her, like how he would have set up this whole thing. And I was just like, that is fucking amazing.
Norm Macdonald was one of the best.
Yeah. And my last one, I would say is Larry Miller.
Okay.
Has this bit about the 5 steps of drinking.
Yes, I
And
know
he
that bit.
Yeah, like he does like the whole thing where he breaks down like as you go along the night and you're drinking, like what your body goes through.
Yep.
And those 3 are my favorite bits
Nice.
of all time.
Those are great bits. Everybody should look them up. They're fucking hysterical. And now, because I opened for Paul Mooney for 150 years,
Yeah.
he would always wrap his show up on street jokes. Those were his favorite things to tell, but he would Mooneyize them.
Yeah.
So all comics sit in the green room and tell the dirtiest street jokes or the most fucked up, racist, politically incorrect street jokes. What
Yeah.
is your favorite or your go-to street joke?
My favorite joke I ever heard actually came from an uncle of mine.
Okay.
My uncle Trell. He passed away last year, actually,
Aw.
at the age of 87.
God bless.
So we were at a family barbecue one time, and this lady, one of my mom's friends and one of my aunt's friends, had said something to him, and he just looked at her and goes, "I don't know who she talking to. That woman 4 foot tall and 8 foot wide." And I was like, what the fuck? Like, to think, because she was a big woman, and he was
Right.
just like, she's 8 foot wide. At 12, I was like, that's the funniest thing. Like, my uncle, yeah, he was like part of the reason why I started being funny,
Nice.
because I saw like how he made everybody laugh all
Yep.
the time. And he would just tell these jokes about having girlfriends and prostitutes, and he was married. And he would talk to me about like, yeah, I got a new girl last week, and I would be like, you ain't getting no new Like you've been married to the same woman for 40 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the street. Like when he said she was 4 feet tall and 8 feet wide. It was a
Hilarious.
simple thing, but
Yep. It's just, but it puts it. Yeah.
she
it's-
was so hurt for the rest of the night. Like she wouldn't sit by him. She wouldn't talk to him.
Well, if she sat by him, she'd still be 8 feet away
Yeah,
from him.
and I was just like, yeah, he's a fucking genius.
Yep. Oh,
So,
that's
yeah,
hilarious.
That's the joke.
I love it. Well, Mike, I love you for coming on the show
Thank you
and
for having me. I
sharing
love you
your.
too.
I love you to pieces. Now, tell everybody where they can find you on social media and if you have any big shows coming up.
You can find me on Instagram at Mike the Joke Teller,
Okay.
and that's pretty much all I use. Really, I use Facebook, but I don't want
Right.
people I don't know really.
Yeah. Get the fuck out of here.
And I think I got a show coming up in the Poconos
Nice.
at Scotty's.
Okay.
A place called Scotty's on August 5th.
Okay.
I have a show with Steve Way, who's another disabled comedian. He's on the show Rami on Hulu.
Okay.
And I have a show with him coming up at Caveat on
Nice.
August 3rd. So yeah, that's pretty much like all I got coming up.
That's fine. That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, I think you're hilarious. And if you guys are out there, follow him at Mike the Joke Teller on Instagram. And don't forget to follow us here at Old School New School Comedy. I'm Christy Miller, and that's been Mike Favor. And we love you, and we'll see you next week, bitch. Bye.